Welcome into NBA Now by Chat Sports. I am Harrison Graham. That is Chase Sr. Yes, the NBA draft is tonight, and yes, we will be live for it. But Chase, the rumors have started early, kind of like last year with the Lakers making that move for Russell Westbrook. How about another point guard, Kyrie Irving, who we'll get to in just a moment, but also Shams Charania of The Athletic mentioned this. Sources, Kevin Durant is monitoring the Brooklyn Nets situation and considering options with his future. This now opens the path for Kyrie Irving to proceed on finding a home via opt-in and trade. Adrian Wojnarowski added this as well, ESPN sources. If Kyrie Irving can't reach an agreement to stay with Brooklyn, he has a list of teams he'd like them to consider on a sign-and trade, including the Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Heat, Mavs, 76ers. None of those teams have the cap space to sign him without the Nets' help. Those are teams who Irving has interest in, but he isn't necessarily a priority for all of them, sources said. Chase, your initial reaction to the potential Brooklyn Nets implosion here?
Well, look, it was funny because Shams had sent the tweet out. Then I imagine Adrian Wojnarowski has his tweet notifications on, and then he was like, oh, I need to break something as well. So here's a Woj bomb for everybody. Obviously, with Kevin Durant, he's one of the most skilled offensive players that we have ever seen in the history of the NBA. And if he goes somewhere else, that's a monster acquisition for whichever team trades for him. And if Kevin Durant does get dealt, it'll be arguably the biggest trade package of all time. Bigger than James Harden's, bigger than some of these other NBA blockbuster trades that we've seen. And even though he's a little bit injury prone at this point of his career, even though he's a little bit older, he's still a walking bucket, a two-time NBA Finals MVP, and one of the best all-around players that we've ever seen. Obviously, the accolades go to the offensive side of the floor, but he's also a premier defensive player. So that's the KD side of it. With Kyrie, it's just another destination and another team that he might go to. And this has kind of been the story with Kyrie. He's with Cleveland and LeBron James. They win the title. He wants to be the go-to guy. Ass out. Goes to Boston. That experiment fizzled out. Then he goes to Brooklyn, misses the first year, and misses a lot of time overtime because of injuries and him being a little bit flaky and a little bit wonky. And now the Nets as a whole could just downright explode. And if you would have said this a couple years ago when Kyrie, KD both went to the Nets, then they traded for James Harden, nobody would have imagined an implosion of this caliber transpiring, but this is the NBA, and crazy things happen all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think it would be fair to say that this would be one of the biggest failed experiments in sports history,
no doubt,
where Kevin Durant leaves the Golden State Warriors, puts his, part of his legacy on the line with Kyrie Irving, and 3 years later, the farthest they ever get is the second round of the NBA playoffs. Pretty wild. By the way, insert the meme of Will Smith alone in the house, and that's going to be Ben Simmons, because they're all going to be gone out of Brooklyn. Where will Kyrie play next season? Because I'm pretty convinced it won't be Brooklyn. I think it's done. I don't think they want to mess with him any longer. And then that means Durant's probably out too. Predict it for us. Where will Kyrie Irving play next season? Go ahead and drop a team down in the comments section. So obviously, this dynamic duo could be splitting up here out of Brooklyn, and we're going to explore some of those teams that were reported for Kyrie and kind of tie in whether or not Durant could make sense for some of those teams as well. Again, we've outlined it on paper. This should have been a duo that worked very well, but they really haven't played that many games together during the 3 years. The Harden thing blew up, obviously, so that's kind of the net side of it. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, they'll get a lot of assets in return if they do trade these two guys. We'll see what happens in Brooklyn. I think we go team by team here, Chase.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's start with the Lakers. And by the way, we have a Lakers channel. 4 of these 6 teams mentioned, we have channels for, so be sure to subscribe, youtube.com, Lakers TV. They traded into the draft tonight, have a 35th pick. Obviously, that doesn't carry big weight with what could happen here, but Kyrie, LeBron, there's been reports that maybe they could sync back up. I think if you could dump Westbrook and get Kyrie, even though he's unreliable, that's a clear upgrade there.
Even though Kyrie is unreliable, it's a dream scenario if you can find some way to dump Russell Westbrook and bring in Kyrie Irving. At this point of their respective careers, Kyrie Irving is by far and away the better player, more impactful offensive player, and in nowadays NBA, makes a lot more sense playing alongside LeBron James because he can handle the basketball, he can play off ball. Most importantly, though, the Lakers as a team need shooting. Last year, they generated some of the most open three-point looks in the NBA, but they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams. And with Kyrie, three-level scorer, masterful with the basketball in his hands, he dazzles you with his ability to finish at the rim. And according to a multitude of reports out there, he's reached out to LeBron James and he has told him, let's think about teaming back up and maybe we can run it back and bring a championship to LA like we brought back to Cleveland. That would be fascinating. You might have to part ways with Anthony Davis in order to get him to Los Angeles. That's the big sticking point for the Lakers.
Man, it seems unlikely, but imagine if Durant and LeBron finally played together as well.
Wow.
Don't know if the Lakers could pull that off. I'll tell you this, though. The NBA draft just a few hours away. Could be going live right now, depending on when you're watching this. Join us. We're live on Chat Sports, youtube.com/ChatSportsTV. Draft starts at 8 o'clock Eastern. We'll be live at 6 o'clock Eastern. We're filming this about an hour beforehand. So join us. We'll have full analysis of all 58 picks of this year's draft. Myself, Chase Sr. You'll see a couple of other faces from time to time as well. youtube.com/ChatSportsTV. Let's talk about the Knicks, Chase. Just move it across town potentially if you're one or two of these guys here. We know this. MSG, they need a superstar.
Yeah.
Could they get one here?
Knicks haven't had a bona fide superstar since Carmelo Anthony. And wouldn't it be hilarious if all of those social media clips had surfaced, KD, don't you wish you came to the Knicks? Well, what if he actually goes to the Knicks? And if he doesn't, and then you're able to settle for the next superstar in line in Kyrie Irving, New York breeds point guards. They love point guards. Kyrie Irving is from New York and the New Jersey area. He holds that area close to his heart. And for both KD and Kyrie going to the Knicks, they become the superstar, the go-to guy, the face of the franchise, the face of New York City. It's one thing playing for the New York Knicks. It's a completely other experiment playing for the Brooklyn Nets, which doesn't have a fan base, whereas the Knicks are a global brand. You land one of these two superstars, shoot, maybe even both, and the Knicks become just a downright fascinating team in the Eastern Conference.
We'll go to the Mavericks next here, and there's actually been a little buzz about Kyrie to Dallas over the last couple of weeks. I'm not a huge fan of the idea. Obviously, if that were to happen, I think a Jalen Brunson sign and trade is a pretty central part about that. You'd probably send 2025, 2027 first-round picks as well to help sweeten that pot. Maybe you throw a couple of other role players. Maybe send a Spencer Dinwiddie back as well, which would be ironic. Maybe a Tim Hardaway Jr., something like that, to help even out the money there. But look, if you're Dallas, if you can get a second star that you trust next to Luka Doncic and have some good role players around him, they added Christian Wood. You still have Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't think they would include him in any trade here. That would be fascinating. What I am more interested in is if Kyrie lands with one of these other teams, is there any path for Dallas to try to get Durant to Big D? Because that duo of Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant, and let me just make this clear, trade anything and everything except for Luka to get Durant, and I'm on board. That would be electric. I don't know if the Mavs have enough assets to pull that one off. I think they do have enough assets to get Kyrie if they want to, although I'm pretty hesitant. But I do think Dallas is a team to watch out for in this potential saga as we move forward. Like Chase and I mentioned, we do have a lot of team channels here at Chat Sports, 6 in total. These 4 have been linked to the Kyrie KD stuff. So if you're a Lakers fan, go check out the Lakers Report. If you just search Lakers Report on YouTube, it'll pop up right there. Mavericks Today by Chat Sports as well. Warriors Today by Chat Sports, and then Knicks Now as well. 4 of our 6 NBA team
Sixers
channels
as well.
We got a Sixers Now by Chat Sports, and then Celtics Today by Chat Sports. We'll have it all covered during the NBA draft tonight, and of course, if one of those teams ends up making a move, we'll have you covered. Should have mentioned the Sixers, had the wrong 4th team on there, but we love Dub Nation as well. YouTube.com/76ers TV here if you want to go subscribe to our Sixers channel.
It's a good segue right there.
Let's go to the Sixers.
To Philadelphia.
Harden for Kyrie swap, another Brooklyn-Philadelphia trade?
Yeah, look, couple things here, right? So Adrian Wojnarowski had said this is Kyrie Irving's list of teams that he'd want to go to. Not all of these teams have interest in Kyrie Irving. So that's the caveat there. But if you're Philadelphia, frankly, I've never been a big fan of James Harden. I've never been a big fan of Kyrie Irving. At this point, though, who is the better player? Who is the younger player? And who can help your championship window more? For me, that's Kyrie Irving over James Harden.
Yep.
James Harden has lost a half step to a full step. There are some concerning trends offensively with the numbers that he put forward in the playoffs and at the end of the regular season. And if Daryl Morey can make up for his wrongs and trade away his kind of child in James Harden because he loves him, traded for him in Houston, saw him win an MVP and make a bunch of deep runs in the NBA playoffs, many All-Star games, and because of his tenure in Houston, he was named one of the top 575 players of all time. If you're Daryl Morey, you have to be concerned also about what you saw from James Harden. So if you can find a way to maybe trade him to a third team and then bring in Kyrie Irving, because obviously Harden isn't going to go back to Brooklyn, I think it makes the Sixers a better team. You have Kyrie who can play on ball, off ball. The same can be said for Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid is a top 5 player in the NBA. You put Kyrie into the equation, and the Sixers can maybe make a deep run in the playoffs for the first time since 2001 and get out of the second round for the first time since that year.
The other couple teams we should mention real quick here, the Heat and the Clippers. We don't have to spend as much time. We don't cover those teams as closely, but Miami's pretty fascinating if you could get him without giving up Jimmy Butler.
No doubt about it.
You wonder, would Bam Adebayo have to be in a trade?
Tyler Hero,
Tyler
Duncan
Hero,
Robinson.
probably.
They have the trade
They've got
chips.
the assets.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. The Clippers
might be the favorite in the West if they land Kyrie, honestly.
Who do you move to get him, though? You're not moving Kawhi or Paul George. Do you have enough assets?
Terrence Mann, Norm Powell, Robert Covington.
They don't have a first-round pick this year.
No.
So that's a little more tricky. Maybe a third team has to get
Steve Ballmer is willing to go into the tax. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
he just wants
the
to win a
money's not the
championship.
issue. It's the assets.
Yeah,
do you have enough assets?
Yep.
So this is going to be fascinating. We'll have it all covered. I do wonder this, and we'll ask you. I think the answer is yes. At this point, shouldn't Kevin Durant request a trade?
If Kevin Durant requests a
Brooklyn,
trade, it already makes one of the worst business decisions in NBA history even worse, of him leaving the Golden State Warriors. You had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers, a young influx of talent. You could have competed for championships every single year, and you left that situation with the best culture, arguably, that we've ever seen for an NBA dynasty. You go to Brooklyn, and then it all fizzles out over the span of a couple of years. I'm going my Y for yes.
It's going to be 34 this year. Time's ticking a little bit for Kevin Durant. Y for yes and for no. Join us tonight, NBA Draft, youtube.com/chatsportstv.